The Boston Bruins saw a little bit of a rebuild here at this year's NHL trade deadline. A little bit of a different story than we're used to seeing for the Boston Bruins, trading their captain, trading one of their top defensemen. What does the future look like for the Boston Bruins? We're going to discuss that here in today's video. So, the Boston Bruins are probably in store for an interesting summer. As the Boston Bruins are seemingly going in a different direction than where they've been the last couple of years. As a team that, in the Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, Zdeno Chara era, this team was going on deep playoff runs. They went to the Stanley Cup final in 2019. They won the Stanley Cup in 2012, I want to say. And they also went pretty deep in a President's Trophy run just a few years back. So this is a Bruins team that is now on the point where the salary cap is caught up to them, age has caught up to them, and they're going in a different direction. So really, we really want to start off with some of the moves that the Bruins made at the deadline, because I think that's the best place to start here. And what's interesting here with the Bruins is the two big players they traded in the division. So hopefully they don't sign long-term contracts there, or at least Brandon Carlo at least. But this is kind of a different looking team. I mean, looking at the Bruins lineup right now, according to Daily Faceoff, right? Your top six, you got Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, and David Pastrnak. That's your top line for the Boston Bruins. Second line, you got Cole Koepke, Casey Middlestat, and Vinny Lettieri. Third line, you got Marat Kuznatinov, Elias Lindholm, and Jacob Lauko, right? Fourth line, you got John Beecher, Mark Kastelik, and Patrick Brown. Then defense, this is a pretty interesting change for the Bruins over the last couple years. Looks like a completely different team on the back end. You got Big Z, Nikita Zadorov, Henry Jokiharju, Mason Lohrei, Andrew Peeke, Parker Witherspoon, and Ian Mitchell. That is your defense and offense for the Boston Bruins for the remainder of the 2025 NHL season. So, obviously, the two big pieces that are no longer there, that were there just a few days ago, obviously Brad Marchand getting traded to the Florida Panthers, and Brandon Carlo going to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I know the Maple Leafs were definitely a team that was looking for that type of defenseman. I just didn't expect the Bruins to make that trade with the Leafs, but they made it work. And this is an interesting situation because now you look at what they got in return. Some of these players that came in, like a Casey Middlestat and a Marat Kuznatinov, those guys could develop into decent depth players. Casey Middlestat has had a rough go of things. Remember last year, he was traded from the Buffalo Sabres to the Colorado Avalanche. Things really haven't worked out in that trade. So then he ends up getting flipped back to the Atlantic Division here, playing for the Bruins. I think it's a good opportunity for him. He's playing in the top six as of right now. They want to see what they have in Middlestat, and if they want to maybe sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, just to see maybe what this guy is capable of. Marat Kuznatinov, similar situation. He's been all over the place. I remember him with the Minnesota Wild. The Bruins are looking at different players, and we've seen some of these guys for a little while now, right? Like Jacob Lauko, John Beecher, even Morgan Geekie, I would say. Like, those are types of players that we've heard about for the Bruins for a little while as maybe developing prospects or guys that really aren't finding a fit with where they're at. So they go to the Bruins hoping to restore some of that energy. On defense, this is really interesting because I would consider that third pair of Parker Witherspoon and Ian Mitchell, like, that's borderline, that's pretty much an AHL defensive pairing. And this is no disrespect to Witherspoon or Ian Mitchell, but I saw a lot of Parker Witherspoon with the New York Islanders. Like, he's a decent defenseman as a seventh defenseman, but as a regular in your top six, I definitely see some concerns there, right? And that's pretty obvious with how things have kind of gone for the Bruins. Like, as much as I like Mason Lohrei, I think he's going to be a bright spot for this team. It definitely, again, you have to consider that when healthy, and you guys are going to say this in the comments down below, with a healthy defense, they still do have Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. Neither of those guys are playing right now. So keep that in perspective. That's also a part of this whole situation with the Bruins, is this is not a healthy Bruins defense right now. So as much as that lineup is the way it is, it's also because of losing your top two defensemen as well. That's also a big part of it, right? So really what's interesting here is some of the younger players that you're hoping to see in the future, like, the Matty Poitras, John Beecher's coming up. We were hoping to see more from Fabian Lysell. Like, that didn't really work out. I think the Bruins, the key for the Bruins in the 2025 offseason is kind of finding players like they did with Casey Middlestat, like finding like maybe reclamation project type players, adding those types of players to your lineup and finding a spot for them in the lineup, maybe finding a way for them to succeed, right? And then you also need to hit big in the draft picks. I think the Bruins, really, we always look back at that year. They did really well. I think it was 2014, right? Charlie McAvoy, Jake DeBrusk, and somebody else was also in there. Let me know in the comments down below who that third player. They had 3 picks in a row. And to varying degrees, they were all pretty good players. And I do remember who that guy is. And he actually just got traded from the Bruins. So leave that guy down below. Who was the third player in that draft class? Because they had 3 picks in a row. And I remember that being a big thing because obviously the Islanders had the next pick after that where they selected Matt Barzal. And the Bruins took a lot of heat for that. But they got some really good players in the 3 guys that they did pick up in those back-to-back-to-back picks. So the Bruins are going to need something similar to that in this year's draft. Now, obviously, that's easy to say, right? You want to be hitting big in the first round of your draft picks. But for the Bruins, considering the last couple years, they've been trading those first-round picks the last couple years to try and win now. And the one that they did have with Fabian Lysell really didn't work out the way that I think Bruins fans had hoped. So they really want to hit it big on this one, I would think, and find a way to kind of create that environment, that culture that is so ingrained with the Bruins of winning culture. This team's definitely taking a different direction. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the guys on this team? I could see them maybe trying to move like a Pavel Zacha. I could see that being a guy that gets moved. It depends on how far down the road the Bruins want to go here, right? Like, I don't see Lindholm or Pasternak going anywhere. I don't see McAvoy or Lindholm going anywhere. So on defense, who else are you really trading, right? Mason Lohrei might have some value. Do you want to trade Mason Lohrei right now? He's probably somebody that you'd want to acquire, so why would you be trading that away, right? That's something that they're looking for. So for the Bruins, I think right now it's just developing and drafting good prospects, and from there, they'll find their way back into things. It just might not be right now. And then there's the conversation about what happens in free agency. What if guys like Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner become available? They would be options for the Bruins. But again, with the direction of this team, maybe those guys see the Bruins as, I don't know if I want to go to the Bruins right now, right? They're kind of selling off at the deadline. This isn't the same team they were a few years ago. And maybe they have more cap space, but they don't really have the team to get it done, and I want to win now. So there are going to be options for the Bruins. I'm sure they'll look at somebody in free agency, especially down the middle, because as much as I like Zacha and Lindholm, like, they're probably going to look to address that. They're probably going to look to add somebody else there down the middle. To who they actually get, like, does it end up being someone like a Ryan O'Reilly? Do they bring back Charlie Coyle? There's definitely a hole there. And it's a matter of who they think is worthy of coming in and honestly, who sees the vision of the Bruins and wants to go back to the Boston Bruins. I don't think it's going to be much of a hard sell, but you never know, right? So that's going to do it for today's video. Like I said, this is not a bad thing for the Bruins. The Bruins fans have known this is coming for a while. And to be honest, I think they would have been more disappointed had they not sold those guys off and gotten prospects and draft picks in return, because chances are they aren't making the playoffs this year and they would have lost them possibly for nothing in the offseason. I think the Bruins are thinking about the philosophy of this team moving forward, moving in a direction of getting younger, getting faster, more skilled, right? The name of today's game. And as guys like Marchand continue to age and get older, I don't really know what's going to happen there, right? He rejected a 3-year contract extension for $3.75 million or something like that. He didn't want to come back. So it's a little bit on both sides. Like, they just weren't able to come to an agreement. I think they see the writing on the wall. We are going to have to start, at the very least, a retool, potentially a full-on rebuild with the Boston Bruins. That's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.